now.
Thank you. Thanks, Matt. Thanks, Kim. This brings nicely on, I think, to Laura, because it's another example, I think, of the collaborative nature of free work and how you use free work yourself, Laura. Especially, we were starting to touch on the end of that little conversation about how free work supports sensory integration and the ability to be able to take on information better and process things. So, Laura, over to you. You're muted, Laura. You'll have to unmute. Oh,
Yeah, I first I'm really so thrilled to be here with Sarah. We've done things before. And I'm really such a huge fan of free work, and also glad to meet Kim because I'm also a Control Unleashed certified instructor. And actually I was in the very first group. So I've been one for a long time. Um, and before I begin, I just want to throw this out to anyone who's listening or in our group here. I've actually done free work with my African gray parrot. And if there's anyone who wants to start a free work for our flighted friends, especially parrots, because they're much more like cats, maybe, than other birds, but I would love to talk to you. um, but yeah,
building up the species here, we've done dogs, cats, snails, and now parrots. So I think that's shows the stretch,
yeah.
the reach of free work.
Well, I'll just say one thing just to echo some of what's been said, everyone who's worked with me knows that I am blueprint aversive. Blueprints are so limiting, and free work could have easily been a blueprint, right? But it's not. It is so flexible that it can adapt to different species because they all have different needs. Um, and you can incorporate it in so many different ways. And I give all the credit to Sarah for having this. We live in a world of mine. This is mine, mine, mine. And I think your attitude, Sarah, has really created a kind of a culture of generosity and flexibility around it. And I just think that's a wonderful model for all of us. But I have made free work an integral part, a big part of my Slow Thinking is Life Saving for Dogs program. And I, of course, used it before, but, and it's been an integrated part of every course I've done since then. And the physical part of it, the observations, that's really important. But I have to say, I have really emphasized it for behavioral reasons. And that is because almost every dog I work with and every dog who's taking the slow thinking course or some of my others have been traumatized. They're struggling with aggressive behavior. They're hyper vigilant. The list goes on. And so I use free work as a major component in my unit on social problem solving skills, because that is what those dogs do not know how to do. Social problem solving requires that you be able to evaluate a situation, you take in information, and then you make decisions about your behavior accordingly. And you need to be able to think before you act. And this is true for humans as well as our dogs and parrots and cats. And dogs who are struggling with the environment often default to what I call threat detection overdrive, They're using knee-jerk adaptive survival strategies, barking, lunging, nipping, hiding, behavioral shutdown, anything but social problem solving. So I'm a huge believer in it because I've seen people use it in my classes. I've used it with my own dogs. I've used it with private clients. And I want to just tell a quick story about why I just am there are very few things in life I feel unreservedly committed to, positive about anymore. Maybe I've just lived too long. I don't know. But free work is one of those. So, and I want to tell the story of Wyatt. Wyatt is a pit bull mix that I have known now for almost 3 years. And actually, Wyatt's human called me after she heard me talk at a Control and Leash conference, one of the first ones. And Wyatt was 8 years old at the time. And for those 8 years, he had been practicing survival strategies, lit large. He had a bite history, could not take him to the vet to get husbandry done. So we started doing, one of the first things we did was free work with Wyatt, because even though Wyatt's human had him, lived with him for 8 years, she still did not really know how he did social processing. And so we set up experience stations, pretty limited at first, and then we expanded it. And we found out that left to his own devices, left to do unpressured, not micromanaged social processing, Wyatt almost always chose to do what I call drive-by social processing, that he would circle around an area counterclockwise, and he would do it. He would stop. In this case, it was a small stepladder, aluminum stepladder with cream cheese spread on the top. Right? So Wyatt loved cream cheese, but that stepladder was scary. So he went around one time and he stopped and he kind of looked at it, and then he said, "No, I'm not ready. Let me go around again and play with the suitcase and the cardboard and all this stuff." He went around a second time, and that time he stopped a little longer, and this was still counterclockwise. Still not ready. The third time he went around and he actually put his paws up on the second step of the step ladder and decided, by God, I'm going to get that cream cheese. And he and he licked it off. Well, I mean, this was the beginning of a revolution for Wyatt, his human, because we started incorporating that drive-by social processing into everything we did with Wyatt, including vet visits. And we started doing a series of happy vet visits where Wyatt would go into an exam room, do drive-by social processing. The vet actually would come in and just sit like an experience station, right? And then and I have the video of this. Wyatt, the first time that happened, he went around once, he ran around twice. The third time he went around, and guess what? He stopped at the veterinarian and he solicited interaction. So that was the beginning of, now, 2 years later, Wyatt being able to have injections, exams, everything without any problems whatsoever, even with parties going on in the vet practice lobby. And this happened when he was 8 years old. So anyone who says dogs cannot learn new things when they're getting on to senior level are just flat out wrong. And that is just one story, right? I love to use it, free work with dogs who are struggling with traumatic stress as an immersion experience in deep safety and also recovering agency. I can go and do things in my own way, and if I only want to spend 30 seconds in this area, that's fine. No one's going to force me. So I just couldn't be more. I just love free work. I love what it's done for people and their dogs. And Wyatt is just one example, a spectacular one, yes. And I'm waiting for it to transform my parrot. When that happens, all of you will be the first to know.
Thank you, Laura. I can see you getting really quite emotional, that Sarah, and especially I think
I
with Wyatt's
am.
story.
I am, Laura. That's amazing. And thank you for loving Ace Free Work as much as I do, and for what you do to support animals that struggle. And that is such a powerful story. And I hope I never really know why free work is so powerful. But we will have dogs that are senior dogs like Wyatt, 10, 11, 12 years old, with well practiced behaviors in response to stimuli, like chasing birds. And to their caregivers' amazement in free work, one of the resident corvids will fly down into the arena because the birds go, free work means food, right? And they'll join in. And the dog, who has had an 11-year history of chasing birds, will just share that space with his corvid, much to the amazement of their caregiver. And that is just beautiful. And I feel really emotional listening to that, because I love bull breeds. They're so misunderstood. They're so sensitive. And we as a society and as a species have spent too much time trying to teach dogs instead of standing back and actually learning from them. And I love what you do, Laura, and that story is deeply meaningful. So thank you for sharing that. And it is simple. What it's doing, I think, is integrating every single part of that dog's amazing body, every single part of their amazing nervous system in a really peaceful way that gives them time to process, but gives us so much valuable information too. And one thing we've seen in free work with dogs that are sensitive to unfamiliar people or unfamiliar dogs or unfamiliar sights like the donkeys or the horses is when they're starting to do that data gathering, they will often go and select a big crunchy chew. And at that moment, as they pick it up, that's when they start watching and looking at the thing that they would have perceived to be a threat before. And it's unbelievable the speed with which they start to be able to process, but in such a calm way. And unbelievable what details they share that are so meaningful, because their caregiver 100% can take that into other experiences for them. So wow. Who isn't feeling emotional hearing about Wyatt? Thank you, Laura.
And I think listening to Laura talking, Laura, we're friends anyway, I know, but even beyond that, I really respect you as a professional. Many people do. You have a wonderful platform. But it's even when we've been doing things for a while and we create these platforms, it's allowing ourselves to be so humble in the face of these wonderful dogs. And I think that's the beautiful thing, it's greater than us or whatever we do. It's that moment, it's that richness, it's that kind of lesson that we learned. And I think Wyatt's story is such a powerful one, Laura. And I think thank you for sharing that. Jeanne, if we come on to you. So you've really dived into all things Ace. I think we can say that. Tell us a little bit about that, and especially about Davy and Daisy May as well. Tell us a little bit about what free work and ACE has meant to you, and those wow moments that you mentioned when you contacted me. That kind of of which there are many. I think all of us have those as we stay curious, as Sarah says.
Well, thank you. I'm glad to do that for you. I first came into ACE through a reactivity class that I was studying. And they mentioned ACE, and I took a little side trip down there, and I thought, that's really interesting. Wow. And then it would come up again, and I would say, I have a list of things I want to do, and ACE was getting closer and closer to the top of the list. I just thought I had so much to offer. And then I'd hear these stories about the dogs at Battersea and Henry and some of the other people that were talking on the post. And I looked at the acing August, that month that you had acing August. I looked at every single one of those, and I said wow so many times. I thought there's a wow factor to ACE that I've never seen, and it came to my life at the right time because I'm a pet sitter dog walker. I started a pet sitting company in 2009, and I just tried to do it in a very professional way and have it grow slowly and do the right thing. And in 2020, Pet Sitters International named me Pet Sitter of the Year. That's a really big deal in that field. There's like 8,000 pet sitters in that group. And I thought, holy cow, and I'm pinching myself. And then COVID came. And so I had all these plans of expanding, and COVID knocked my business right down to, we were in a lockdown. But anyway, I kept thinking, is that all there is? What's next for me? I needed something else to do that I could really, when the world opened up again and I could start pet sitting again, it wasn't enough anymore. I needed something extra. And ACE Free Work became that thing that was the big magnet for me. And I started to learn, and I did module 1, and I did module 2, and I did module 3, and then I did my 5 submissions, and I learned so much during the modules. I'd love to come to England. That's definitely on my top of list of things I want to do. But just having somebody watch me in a Zoom meeting and say, oh, Davey, you could put the station at this height versus the height that you're at, and he'll organize himself better. And holy cow, I started to learn all these little extra things along with ACE. Davey is reactive. Davey, and I thought I was doing everything right with Davey, and I've been involved in animals most of my life. I thought I was going to work with horses for a long time. And then I ended up leaning more into dogs. Well, Davey's my second German Shepherd, and I loved my first German Shepherd so much. She was so easy and so smart. And I went to this class with a local class with somebody who prepares people for the show ring. And I thought, I took my mutt. I wasn't going to show, but I love being around people who like dogs, and I want to hang out with them. Well, one of the girls in the class was a German Shepherd show breeder. And I worked with some of her dogs. She asked me if I could work with some of her puppies that were shy. And I said, sure. She said, you can have either a percentage of the sale or you can have a puppy. And I went, puppy? So I got this wonderful puppy 2 years later, and it was Davey. And when Davey he was very smart. He was the one that was the demo dog in the class. As a puppy, he could sit, stand down at 2 months of age. Well, at 5 years, we got asked to leave. We were asked not to come back. Davey didn't like anybody new in the class. And one night he had a thing with a vocal altercation with a new dachshund. And the teacher said, you can't come back. As a matter of fact, I don't even want you to stay for the rest of the class. And I thought, you know what? I've been doing things that I thought were right all along. And I didn't know where to go. I didn't know what else to do. And this was when there was the Winter Summit a few years ago. I started to listen to the Winter Summit, and I heard Janet Finley talk. She was like the 8th person in, and she talked about reactivity, and that's all she worked with. And she described Davey and me to a T. By the time she was done, I was in tears and I was signing up for a class. I had found my solution. Nobody knew what to do in my area. And, the people at PetSmart, I worked with a lot of reactive dogs since. And so I worked with some that were puppy milled puppies, and they want their PetSmart, and they were told to go stand in the corner because their dog was so disruptive. So for 6 weeks, they went and stood in the corner and tried to watch what the class, and that's how and then they called me. And one of these dogs, I can tell you a story about all these dogs, but I'll just tell you that I started with this one, so I'll finish that. It was a Keyshawn that was purchased at a local pet shop, obviously a puppy mill dog, didn't know how, couldn't go outside, barked and screamed at everything. Nobody could walk around the house. People couldn't ride their bicycle past the house. The dog was really suffering in his own little world. And they called me and I started working with him and we started doing ACE free work. And this dog, by the end, we had 8 sessions. And by the 8th session, the dog and I and the owner were walking around the neighborhood and she's crying. And I said, why are you crying? She said, I never thought I could do this. And I thought, ka-choo. And I have more and more stories like that. Davey and I can walk. I mean, I'm not going to take him in a parade, obviously, but we can walk in the neighborhood. We can go to the park. Other dogs that I work with, it's the same thing. It opens up a new world for the owner and for the dog. And so I just follow what you guys teach me. And I learned how to, one day I ran out and to my neighborhood has a lot of dog walkers. And I said, oh, could I take a picture of your dog in a sit, please? I took 10 pictures of dogs in a sit that day to see who had a tidy sit, who had a sloppy sit. I was just gathering information. And so now when I work with a dog, one of the first things we do is I ask them, could you walk, just take your dog in a cross, go walk out 20 feet, come back 20 feet, walk out 10 feet, walk out 20 feet, come back, walk out, and then sit at the end. I'm looking for a couple of things. And so that they're not nervous, I tell them, I'm just going to look at his coat. So anyway, I'm looking at his gait, I'm looking at how he puts his paws on the ground, I'm looking at how the owner handles the dog, how they communicate together. Do they know how to handle a leash properly? And I'm looking at where we're starting and I'm planning where we're going to go. I just can't say enough about ACE. I took it a couple weeks, I guess about a month ago, to the local shelter. And it's a real high kill shelter. It used to be, the numbers are really coming down. And they had a 2nd anniversary of a new director. And I asked her, they were looking for vendors. And I said, could I come and show ACE free work? Well, there was a lot of people there with a lot of vendors there. And they were bringing out the dogs so that the people could meet them. And I had an ACE free work set up on the side. And people kept coming over to see the ACE free work. These dogs were off leash. They were running around. And it was just amazing. I plan to go back and work with them this is my busy pet sitting season, the holidays. So after the holidays, I'd like to work with them on a more regular basis. I just think it's a wonderful thing for these dogs. And another thing I'm planning on doing is I network in a local women's group in town, and they had a girl there that talked last week about her horse rescue. Well, again, I love horses. I just want to pet them right now. I'm probably not going to ride them, but they take horses that they get calls from animal control, and she'll say, we have 14 horses that we need to place. They're starving. Their feet are bad. Everything. They're in horrible shape. I'm going to go out there and see if I can do ACE free work with these horses, and just to see. I mean, they have a horse that will just run over people, and I'm sure there's a lot of trauma in their background because I've watched horses that were captive from when they were in the wild, and they never showed those kind of reactions to people. So I'm looking forward to that. Another thing I'm doing is, and I'm looking at this, and I belong to a lot of pet sitter chats too. And so I look at the things that are frustrating for pet sitters, and one of the most frustrating is the lunging dogs on a leash. And why don't they get them trained? And I'm thinking, maybe they did get them trained. Maybe they had a trainer like Davey and I did, and that trainer did what she knew, but she didn't know this. And so I'm just getting so many positive signs from the work that I've done that I know I want to keep going with it further. Yesterday, I went to one of my, I'm diverting. Another thing that we deal with a lot is we deal with dogs that have undergone heartworm treatment. They may have been recently adopted and now they're getting healthy again. And so these dogs have restricted exercise. Well, free work is wonderful for those dogs. It gets them out of their crate. They don't have to run. They can walk from one close station to another. So I'd like to bring that into to our pet sitters. I've started to write a feature, hopefully it's a feature article, about what free work does and how we can use free work as pet sitters, that we haven't done this before. It's just such an option for people to do something outside of the box that has no expectation, no pressure. And so it's great for the dogs and it's great for the pet sitter. So yesterday I went to a client's house. She's been a client of mine since almost the very beginning. I started pet sitting in 2009. And she has 2 young dogs now, and they're 2 Shelties, and she has a bunch of cats. And so I took a new sitter over to introduce her. And she looked at us and said, you know, my dogs are never calm like this around people. I don't know what it is about you, but I've never seen them this calm. The Ace Free Work gave me this calmness. I used to be more judgy. I'd get frustrated. Davey taught me so many lessons. And, you know, whatever I was looking for when COVID came down, and the big word was pivot, I kept saying, this is my pivot. What do I do next? And I didn't find it until I started the ACE experience. And so I completed the trainer, and I'm very excited about that. And I somehow, my class got ahead of me because I'm just now getting enrolled in module 4, but I've taken a side trip down all these other learning experiences. And Control on Leash is one of the things that I had written down that I wanted to learn more about. I took an aggressive dog course with Michael Chicasio, and I took a course, a master class frustration course with Emma Lee. And and I'm taking Tim Brovey's course now on ethology. I mean, all of these things play into what we do. And I feel like I'm coming to the training world late. I mean, I chose in 2009, I chose to do pet sitting, not training, because I thought I could scale it. And I found out that, yeah, I could scale it, but the world could change. And so ACE Free Work is something that is captured my attention. The wow factor is what brought me into it. The wonder factor is what I look for in every single dog that I work with. I wonder what's going to happen next. I wonder what we're going to learn from this dog. I wonder what this experience is going to be like. I wonder what the owner is going to say to me 2 months from now. I wonder what her friends are going to say to her. I mean, there's such a wonder factor that never goes away. And wonder is something that I've missed since childhood. So it's nice to bring the wonder back into my world and the world of the dogs and the owners that I work with. And the last factor that I noticed is the wholeness factor. I used to look at dogs in one way. Okay, I'm going to work on this sit, not thinking what might cause that sit. Now I'm looking at the whole dog, and it's a factor that I didn't bring into my world before. So I don't know where this is going to go next. There's a weight factor and a watch factor and other factors that I'm looking at. But right now, I just want to do the best I can with where I'm at. I know I have a lot more to learn. I know I'm among this group. I'm a newbie, but I'm so excited about it. And when I hear comments like my dog's never been that calm around anybody, I know I'm doing something right. So thank you for the experience, and I can't wait to learn more. And I'm delighted to be a part of this group. So
Well, thank you, Jeanne. It's quite inspirational hearing you talk. And I think, we talk about relief for the dog, but you've shared lots of examples about how this gives relief for the humans around them too, whether that's the caregivers, the professionals, all these kind of things. And I think in the industry of pet sitting, I think, I think you're doing amazing things, bringing awareness, bringing free work to that local rescue as well. I think it's great. I think, and we're all newbies, really. This is the beautiful thing.
Yes.
We have a lot of stuff that we've banked over time, but the next dog's going to humble us again. And, so this is why it's so amazing. Thank you, Jeanne. Thank you. Petra,
Beautiful.
let's go to you, Petra, over in Slovenia. Thank you for joining us.
Hi. Do you hear
So,
me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay.
You've been on quite the journey. So share a bit about your kind of experience with ACE and what's brought you to become an ACE tutor.
Well, a lot of people today now have said a lot of things, so I will be fast. First of all, hi all. My name is Petra. I live in Slovenia. And I am a dog behavior consultant and, as Andrew said, an ACE tutor, and also, of course, a dog guardian of a beautiful boy. I'm gonna cry, named
Bless.
Diego. And this is Sarah's fault. I blame Sarah for this. So Diego is actually my foster failed dog. And because he has so many challenges, behaviorally and physically, and because I'm constantly looking for a different ways to support him with all of his sensitivities. And of course, I'm also trying to, as a dog behavior consultant, I'm also trying to find better ways to help dogs in general. I started following ACE as soon as Sarah made it public that she's developing it. And to be honest, in the beginning, I was like, oh, cute. We like enrichment, we like enriched environment. Let's see how Sarah is using it. And then I started with ACE education. And then I was just amazed how ACE free work includes everything, but everything. It allows dogs and then their guardians to slow down, to take a deep breath. And when you slow down and you start breathing, you can start thinking, you can start learning and not just reacting. Um, it's not, and it's not just about learning better behaviors or getting better habits. It's about having choices, autonomy over your own body. And I'm talking about dogs and guardians or handlers who are working with those dogs. You have a choice how to organize your body, how to use your body, recognizing what feels good and what doesn't. And it's the ACE for me, it's about exploring also the world of your senses and not just nose, eyes, ears, which are usually used in dog training world, but also touch. Touch is very important, and balance and proprioception. And it's about exploring and coping with your emotions and learning to have better self-regulation. This for sure was important for me and my dog. And I use ACE actually every day and everywhere. I use it in my puppy classes, in my youngster classes. I don't even know how I would do puppy classes anymore without ACE. I use it on social walks, where we, of course, often get not just friendly dogs, but also reactive dogs or dogs that have difficulties with social contact. I use them when working with reactive, fearful dogs and also dogs in shelters. And I feel that ACE gives dogs and their guardians the chance to get to know each other better, to build better communication, to build mutual respect, trust, and to make that connection that it's often lacking. Of course, I use ACE also with my amazing boy, and we are always discovering new ways that ACE helps us coping, both me and him, with the world around us. So I'm really happy to be part of ACE community. I'm so grateful that I met Sarah and that I had opportunity to work with her. So not just for me and my boy, but also for other dogs. And I really hope, that's why I also wanted to join today, because I would like to, in my country, because Slovenia is still a little bit further away from UK, where you are all connected. for more people to learn about it, and not just the guardians that I work with, but also for other dog professionals to use it, because it's an amazing tool. I also worked with nature conservation dogs, and what was said before, how they using ACE to give them that opportunity to relax and to reset before they continue with work, before they start and before then continue the work. I mean, it's amazing. They can do it so much better and so much faster if they have this opportunity to relax and to get into a known environment where they can reset. So thank you for opportunity to share all of this. And Sarah, don't say anything because you will make me cry again.
Thank you.
Petra, Petra, I have no words because I'm going to cry. Just you and Diego, and where you take this work and how eloquent you are in talking about all the amazing layers of ACE. Please, yes, share as much as you can and write, because you're a very gifted educator. And yeah, Petra's case histories were amazing, and that's a joyful thing for me, is watching the case histories that Jeanne submitted and the people that are working towards a certification have submitted. It just blows my brain. And yeah, Petra, Jeanne, thank you. Everyone, your gifts. I'm almost lost for words. Almost.
Thank you, Sarah. Can
thank
I
you.
just share one thing more?
Yes,
Because
please.
this was before you were talking about the magic of Tilly Farm, and it's Tilly Farm combined with ACE work combined with Sarah that gave me and my amazing boy, who is 11 and a half right now, years, not months, years. That moment that we were there was actually the first moment where I could take the first breath, like really deep, relaxing. It was just a moment. But when you get in this safe environment, when you get the feeling, your body gets the feeling that it can breathe. It can be just a moment, but you know that it's possible, because until then, neither you nor your body, and I'm talking really physical body, does not realize that this is possible. And I can imagine how this can feel also for some dogs when they get, or for majority of dogs, when they finally get a space where they are not pressured, where they feel safe, not just at home. Because actually we didn't have, even at home where we are safe, we didn't have that release that we had at Tilly Farm doing ACE work. And then you build on this, because if it's possible to do it, this Sarah said, if it's possible to do it one moment, then you can do it for 2, then you can do it for 3, then you can do it for a minute, then you can do it, and then your life gets better. So thank you for ACE.
Thank you for that amazing workshop with you and Diego. Those experiences will stay with me forever. They're a part of my soul. It was beautiful to watch you two together and for you to have the experiences that you have. Thank you.
Wow. Okay.
And it's so, yeah, it's so important that what Petra was saying, that so many people have never felt relaxation for themselves. They've never seen their dog relax, and their dogs never experienced relaxation before. And that's just one of the gifts that free work can give. Thank you.
I think listening to people share their stories, I think perhaps, obviously wrongly, people have seen free work in ACE and this kind of mindset as being something on the side, but in fact, it's actually the central bit. Everything else is on the side. I think that's what we can all appreciate. When you actually see that, you recognize the power of that. So Sue, another area, of course, Sue, that Jeanne was talking a little bit about dog sitters. Of course, you're a groomer, and you're part of the movement of trying to shift about what grooming is and recognizing the dog's experience in that. And free work's central to that, isn't it, for you?
Oh, I want to thank you first for putting me straight after Petra, because I'm feeling really emotional now. So yeah, and some of the things that Petra said have really resonate with me. And one of the first things I want to talk about is not actually about the dog. It's about one of the guardians that came to me, because she'd been having her dog had been really struggling in the grooming environment. She was struggling with being able to brush her dog. She was getting criticised every time for not being able to brush her dog, but no instruction on how to brush. And she came to me one Saturday morning, and she came in the door. The lady came in the door. The dog came in as well. And as I always do, I've always got first appointment is always just free work. I, like you all say, learn from the dog first. And don't want any dog when it comes into my salon to feel anxious. I want them to feel as safe as possible. I don't want to have to interact with me if they don't want to. So it's always free work on the first session and several sessions afterwards and ongoing if need be. But this one particular lady, she came in and she took the dog, I asked her to take the dog's harness off, and she just sat in the chair. Her dog immediately started going around the free work. It's a cockapoo. And she just had, talk about pent up emotions. She just talked solidly. I couldn't get a word in edgeways, but she just got, it was almost like she got to have this release, and she just got all this information she'd got to get out of the concerns she'd got about her dog, the concerns about the grooming, how stressed she was about her dog's behavior, because she'd been led to believe her dog was aggressive. And it was I knew that ACE Free worked freed up the people to talk, but that session, it wasn't really about the dog, it was about the guardian in that case. And she just needed that session so badly. So if I'd have been a traditional groomer, that lady would have never had that opportunity to just release all this pent up stress. And again, it gave her the freedom to change the way she's thinking about her dog now. And she came in a few weeks ago. I've been working with her for probably she's been for, I think, 7 sessions now. And the dog is getting on amazing. She'll now come to me. I can touch her, I can brush her. She is going to be a slow progress dog. But every time she makes loads of notes of what they've been doing, and she's obviously one of these people that just gets it. And she was telling me about on a Sunday morning how she takes the dog to a big park that's got little cafes, and how she used to take her dog into the cafe and literally drag the dog into the cafe, and her dog would then start barking at people. Was obviously very stressed, and she says, what I do now is I walk towards the cafe and I follow Penny. I let her decide when we're going to go in. And it's those things that just make me feel so emotional, that we are giving people permission to listen to their dogs. And when we listen to when we know that when we listen to our dogs, they'll give us the right answer. So now this dog the relationship, for a start, is absolutely amazing. The first session, there didn't seem to be much of a bond between them. The dog Penny didn't seem to go to a guardian for support. She looked a bit lost, but now she goes and, you know, goes every now and again. She'll just go and check in with a guardian. And that's just, for me, that's just so rewarding. And it's all down to just giving, firstly, the dog's time to process, but the guardian's time to process as well. And yes, let's say that Penny is a work in progress. She's had lots of experiences where she's been muzzled for grooming. Obviously, the safety restraints being used on her. So we've got a lot of unpacking to do. But Penny is working with me now. She wants to come and work with me, which is the first thing. She obviously feels safe, which is a big thing for me. I want the dogs to feel safe, because if they feel safe, unlike many dogs in a grooming salon, if they feel safe, they don't need to use the teeth, basically. There's lots of other ways they can communicate with me. So for me, using free work in the salon, it just enables the dogs to get that first experience of, actually, I don't have to talk to that person if I don't want to. I never set the free work up close to me. It's always at the other end of the salon. It's not a massive salon, but I never put the dog in a position where it's got to come next to me, particularly on the first session. So I don't do stuff like, I don't put free work on the table for the first sessions. It's all on the floor at a safe distance for them. But I came down to Tilly Farm a couple of years ago, and Sarah was talking about how they sniff the feet first and then work up the body. And now Sarah's pointed that out. They do. They come to me, they start sniffing around my feet, and then they'll go away, do a bit more free work, then they'll come and sniff a bit higher. And that's when I know that they're starting to have confidence in me, that I'm not going to rush out and grab them and start sticking them in a bath or doing something that they don't particularly like. And it really has changed. Ace Free Work, it's just changed the way I groom completely, because it's so obvious that when we give dogs the choice of communicating in whispers rather than having to shout at us, it's so much easier for everybody. I get a lot of the guardians that come to my salon have just say how calming it is. And I think it all starts that first session where there's no pressure on the dog, no pressure on the guardian, and no pressure on me. I can just sit back and watch the dog do its wonderful dogness. And yes, I am information gathering as the dog is. I just find free work, because they're doing something that's potentially positive for them. They can do all that multi-sensory processing. Salons are quite intense places. There's lots of strange equipment, clumsy looking equipment as well. Usually, it's a strange person that they've never seen before, a strange environment, lots of different smells that they've either never encountered before or they've encountered in a negative way. So giving them that time using free work to just process that information is just game changing for me. And I know lots of other groomers are using free work as well. And this is the beauty of it, because from day one, Sarah, you've allowed us to share free work in any way that we think fit. You've not been prescriptive, say, oh, it's got to be done this way, it's got to be done that way, it can only be used for this, you can only use it if you X, Y, Z. So giving us that freedom to use ACE free work in a way that suits our particular area of expertise has just enabled me to share free work in a way that's positive for me and groomers, and other groomers are using it now. So, and the feedback I'm getting from other groomers as well is that it's changed the way they introduce dogs into the grooming salon. And it's not just something for the first session, it can be used throughout the grooming sessions at any point. I usually always have a snuffle mat around, you know, whether it's got anything in, but if they go, you know, if they get off the table and go to the snuffle mat, then I'll pop something in. But it's really interesting when you were at the conference a couple of weeks ago, because obviously I was there as well, you were talking about dogs biting down on things to relieve tension. And I've been working with a cockapoo, labelled as extremely aggressive for grooming. He'd had 2 years of vet sedation because he was ungroomable. This dog is an absolute joy to groom. He's amazing, or amazing, as Sarah would say. And I was able to clip this dog off on the 4th session. He didn't look brilliant, but I got the mats out. I got his coat in a manageable condition. He didn't need to bite me. He didn't need, I think we had 1 or 2 grumbles at what point, take my hands away. I think he's learned that the more whispers are not listened to. So he doesn't tend to do a lot of calming signals. He goes straight for the grumbling. So, and the whine as well. I know a whine is take your hands away, give him space. So he's learning now that he doesn't even have to do the growl or the whine, because he knows that if he wants to get off the table, he knows where the steps are to get off. But a couple of sessions ago, I've got a little unit at the side where I keep all my brushes, toys and stuff like that, and he was scratching away at one of the drawers. So I took the drawer out and put it on the floor, and I've got a big purple ball about this size, and he got this purple ball, took it onto the table and just munching on it, just pressing on it. And it wasn't until the conference I thought, actually, that's his way of decompressing. But why is decompress? So what I do now, why is decompressing? I don't touch him, but then he'll let the ball go, and then I can clip him, and then he'll do a bit more decompression on this ball. And I'm thinking, wow, you know, it's just mind blowing, really, that if you listen to them, they will tell you. And I just want to mention a few other things outside of the grooming salon. Sarah knows my dogs. I've been going down to Tilly Farm since, it's nearly 10 years since my first trip down there, and it is, if you can ever go to Tilly Farm, go, because it is a magical place. I cry every time I go, for various reasons, but it was through Sarah's observations and teaching about observations that I picked up really early that my spaniel I've got now has got bilateral hip dysplasia. I wasn't 100% whether it was hip dysplasia, he got or luxating patella, but I knew there was something the matter with his rear end because of the way he sat, how he ran. I knew there was something wrong, and he has been diagnosed now through x-rays of bilateral hip dysplasia. So again, free work's really good for him to slow him down, to help with his movement. But also, I came down a couple of years ago, and you were talking about this, what the behaviours are when they've had enough, you know, the counter surfing. And it wasn't the counter surfing, but if you remember, I took Talis into a field after a session. He had a run round, and then he went and stood at the gate, as if to say, I've had enough now, I want to go back. And he did. He went and got straight back in the car after that. But now I've paid more attention to those sorts of signs. So when we take him off lead walking, I notice when he's starting to get, he'll run around for about 25, 30 minutes. Then he'll start going for treats. Up until then, he's not interested in treats. So for me, that's the first sign, is tiring. And then if I don't pay attention, then he'll go and stand next to a hole. And then if I don't pay attention, he'll start digging. And then I know then that if I don't get out of that field pretty quickly, I'm going to have a really dirty dog to bath when I get home. So even paying attention to these little signs that you think are completely insignificant can make a big difference to the dogs. So thank you, Sarah, not only for ACE-free work, but all the other stuff you've shared with us over the years. You have influenced me majorly on the way I interact with people during grooming sessions, about how much information I give freely, probably to my own detriment, and you are exactly the same as well. But then also I met Andy during COVID. I listened to a webinar he did. I think he was had hosted him a webinar, and I think I cried for at least 75% of that webinar, because Andy had finally put everything I felt into words that I couldn't describe myself. So the two of you have really massively influenced both my working life and my private life, to be quite honest, because my husband is he's retired now, but when he worked, he was in a very stressed, quite potentially risky job. So we used to do lots of risk assessments before he went to work, and every job he went, he had to do risk assessments. And because Talis can be quite reactive to dogs coming into his space, obviously, with his hips, he doesn't like dogs coming too quickly up to him. And my husband, who was driving me mad on walks because he was like a ninja. Every dog, oh, get Talis back on me, do this, do that. And it was actually Andrew that made me realise that that's what Paul needed to do to feel safe. So it's not just about the dogs, really, it's about people as well. So once I realised that it's not Paul being oversensitive, that's just what he needed to do to feel safe. So you've probably saved our marriage as well. So yes, so thank you, both of you, for bringing so much education to the dog world. And I could actually go on for hours about how good free work is. I will share one thing as well. I had a grandson. My first grandson was born in July, and I was really quite worried about how the dogs would react when he came round for the first time. So when he came round for the first time, I put his free workout in the lounge, and then bought the pram in. And of course, I put Pet Remedy on, as they got Pet Remedy on as well. So it was a practice behaviour for them to do with a new experience coming in. And I must admit, they're amazing with him. She just wants to lick him to death. Ritzy is still keeping a distance, and that's absolutely fine. Talis likes to come have a sniff, and then he's lost interest. But having that free work, that first session, I think really helped them think, actually, this is nothing. We know what we're doing. This is nothing. So yeah, it just amazes me in how many situations ACE free work can be so valuable.
Thank you. Me too. And what you've done to support not just the dogs in the grooming salon, but the groomers, to give them all these amazing layers, is just mind-blowing, Sue. And I'm so proud to have you as part of the ACE teaching team and as part of the ACE community, as I am proud to have connections with everybody here. And Andy, thank you for creating this amazing space.
I'm just so grateful I was in the right place at the right time, because I was at Tilly Farm when you started introducing free work with Henry, and I was just so lucky to be in that place at that time. And it was almost if it was meant to be, you know.
I think it was.
And then just bringing it back to the grooming environment. Just
interestingly, we have a young groomer who's going through the program, and she started to recognize these 17-minute windows where the dogs need little breaks in the grooming salon. So I'd be really interested if you start making a sort of note of that.
Yeah, I will do.
Really interesting.
I think it's one of these things, the more we learn, the more we wish we didn't know.
Yes.
Because, you know, when you think about it, well, you probably don't realise, but most dogs are in the grooming salon for about 2 hours.
Yeah, I know.
How stressful 2 hours I there are a couple of dogs I have in for 2 hours, but they're dogs that, you know, are really quite, that been working with, you know, I had two, in fact, the two I had in yesterday, I had two in together for 2 hours, brother and sister, and they've been with me since puppies. And they've both got to the point now where I put them both on the table together and they both curl up and go to sleep while I groom them. They're absolutely adorable. Actually, this is probably something you'll be able to help with. Whenever they lay down together, they always lay the same with the same side to touching. So the boy always touches the girl. It's always the boy's right side with the girl's left side.
Oh, interesting.
And when it comes to grooming, it's the side that they make contact with the brother or the sister that they don't like having done.
Interesting.
And I wonder if in the womb that's how they were in the womb.
Maybe.
Yeah,
That's really interesting.
yeah. But it's definitely the sides that they lay next to each other that they don't like. That side's more challenging for them to have groomed.
So they might be lying on that side to stop people touching them there, maybe. Don't know.
Yeah.
How interesting. See, we know nothing. We're all learning. We should all be eternal willing student of the dog and then share all our collective experiences in beautiful evenings like this.
Absolutely. It's, you know, I was thinking, you know, when it was coming up to 8 o'clock, you'd think by now we'd sort of run out of benefits of free work. You'd have thought it had all been covered, but I think we could stay here all night and still not exhaust benefits of free work.
I agree.
Well, that's the thing. I think
Amazing.
the base and free work, they spread very wide. I think that's what we've proven tonight. And thank you all so much for contributing and sharing your own experiences. And I think, and those threads kind of come together, they stitch together beautifully to make this wonderful community that you've helped inspire and create, Sarah. And I think tonight was very much a celebration of ACE and free work, but also a celebration of you. And as Laura said earlier, you know, it's sadly not the norm that somebody will be able to be so generous to be able to say, let's all learn together. Let's see what this wonderful gift that free work is can provide us with in understanding, in the case of dogs, who these dogs are and what they need. I think it's a wonderful thing.
Thank you. It's been a very humbling and very inspiring and emotional evening for me. So thank you all. Thank you.
Well, there's amazing comments. I'm sorry I couldn't read them out. They've been coming in quite thick and fast, actually. There's a couple of hundred comments in there as we stand. Please, if you're listening in either now live or in the catch up, share your own thanks to Sarah and to Ace and to Free Work and your own experiences. For the people in the room, do check the comments, because people have been talking about when you shared your experiences, that's inspired others to share theirs. And actually quite a few comments have been asking about you as individuals and your own work. So please share that in the comments as well. Links, if you're happy to your own work, so people can find out more about you. And it's been an absolute joy tonight. Thank you so much. These things are always such a wonderful experience, really, to kind of get everybody into the Zoom room rather than just things in the chat. And I think I might do more of these actually in the future.
Yes, please.
And just one last point on that, dog centre care wouldn't be here if it wasn't for you, Sarah, really, because we've discussed this before, I know, but you were one of the people that really gave me permission. I shared things with you back along, and you were like, yeah, you must talk about this stuff at a time when I did think I could. So I think this is what happens. It has that knock-on effect. And well, thank you everybody for joining into the live tonight, who in the Facebook Live. Thanks to everybody in this wonderful space that we've created tonight. Thank you for being so generous and sharing your own experiences. And this is it then before Christmas. Have a wonderful Christmas if you celebrate that way, or whatever you do over the holidays. And there'll be a lot more things coming in Dog Centre Care next year with Facebook Lives and things. So keep an eye open for that. And Sarah and I will be at the ABK conference in the summer. which is exciting, to do stuff in person again. So that's always a wonderful thing. Great. Well, thank you very much, everybody. And yeah, have a good evening. And thank you very much for joining in.
Thank you. Happy Christmas.